Hey guys, I'm Valiant. If you guys want to catch me live, I stream on Twitch and sometimes TikTok. So today we're going to be talking about the Stormclaw Druid. I've been trying to figure out a way to improve this build, and I've recently played Earthen Bulwark build I'm going to take a lot of inspiration from. The major changes to the build, skill-wise, would be I am no longer using Debilitating Roar, and the biggest change would be I dropped Grizzly Rage for more customization with aspects, and eventually this build will be dropping all the uniques besides the Great Staff of Crone. I wanted it to feel like Stormclaw still, and I think I accomplished that. So in this build, the setup, the purpose of how we play is our ultimate's going to pull everything to us, and that we do so much damage that everything just blows up immediately with the Barber Heart. So basically our survivability is based off of our offensive capability. So I might be biased because I really enjoy the Stormclaw Druid, but this build is the funnest build that I've played. I know everybody's going to have a different playstyle or preference, but it actually feels like I'm playing Diablo again. I want to stress that this is a rough draft, and I will try to have a completed and perfected build in a few days. I'm excited to share this build with you guys. I hope you enjoy. So the first ability that we are going to be using is Blood Howl. Kills reduce the cooldown on Blood Howl by 1 second. It also increases your attack speed by 15% for 4 seconds, and it heals you for 26% of your maximum life. Everything in this build revolves around attack speed. The faster we attack, the faster we will proc our defensive and our symbiotic aspect. Our next ability is Hurricane. Hurricane's a defensive, offensive. It does everything for the build. It helps with AoE. It stacks your disobedience buff. Enemies who are damaged by Hurricane are slowed by 25%. Enemies affected by Hurricane deal 20% less damage. It will also help our proc rate with Overload and symbiotic aspect. Our next ability is Earthen Bulwark. This is the main way we stay alive. It has a cooldown of 16 seconds, but the way the build works is that we're going to be proccing symbiotic aspect, and we're going to keep this up at all times. We also use it for extra damage because we're using Shrapnel. And it makes you unstoppable. We will be using Aspect to improve this. And for our ultimate, we are using Cataclysm. This helps with everything that I mentioned before. The main reason we are using Cataclysm is it has a duration of 14 seconds. We use this for our Inexorable Heart. This is the way we pull everything into us, and it helps with the AoE damage as well. Our basic attack is going to be Claw. It's going to apply Storm Strike as well. Claw's attack speed is increased by 15%, and Claw has 15% chance to attack twice. Our last ability is going to be Cyclone Armor. We mainly use this more as a passive for the damage reduction, but we can use the active for a knockback or interrupt as well. During the time of this video, I did have 3 uniques on. This build will do better with only 1. Instead of Tempest Roar and our Mad Wolf's Glee, the aspects I'm currently using would be Bending Stone to improve our Earthen Bulwark and Might for 20% damage reduction when we auto attack. For the Helm, we are going to prioritize basic skill attack speed, total armor, cooldown reduction, and then you could either go for barrier generation or maximum life. For the chest armor, we're going to prioritize total armor, flat damage reduction, and damage reduction from close. The last stat, you could either get a 3rd damage reduction, either fortify or from poison, maximum life, or barrier generation. For our gloves, the aspect is going to be the symbiotic aspect. The stats will be attack speed, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, and then storm skill cooldown reduction. This is huge for our ultimate and Hurricane. For our pants, we are going to be getting the disobedience aspect. This stacks your armor and helps with survivability. We are going to prioritize total armor, flat damage reduction from close. Then you could either go for a 3rd damage reduction or dodge chance. For our boots, the aspect is going to be the Ghostwalker aspect. We're going to be looking for total armor while in werewolf form, dodge chance, movement speed, and the 4th stat will be willpower or all stats. And for our weapon, we are using the Great Staff of Crone. It does damage to close enemies, damage to crowd-controlled enemies, non-physical damage. Preferably, we would want 9 ranks of Claw, because this is our main damage source. For the gems, I am currently using rubies in my armor for maximum life, which gives us more barrier from Earthen Bulwark and more survivability. And I am using topazes to increase my basic skill damage in my 2-hander, because the basic attack is our main source of damage. For the rings, I am currently using the Edge Masters and Conceited aspect. This gives you up to 20% damage increase based on your primary resource, and we don't use Spirit for anything, so it should always be full. And then Conceited gives you up to 25% increased damage while you have a barrier, and will always have a barrier due to Earthen Bulwark. The stats we are looking for would be vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, and then either maximum life or lucky hit chance. And then for our amulet, we are going to be using Rapid here. It's important that this aspect goes on the amulet. It increases the attack speed up from 30 to 45%. The stats that we are looking for would be plus ranks of Envenom. This gives you 30% increased critical strike damage, total armor from Werewolf, movement speed, and then either another source of damage reduction or cooldown reduction. The better cooldown reduction we have increases the uptime on our ultimate, which increases our clear speed. And then for our Malignant Hearts, we are currently using the Caged Heart of Revenge. This now suppresses damage instead of flat damage reduction, so this is something that I need to test out changes. And then next we are going to be using the Barber Heart. With the changes made, it is now viable for this build. I'm currently using a lower duration on the Absorb. I'm going to test out different ones and see if the duration matters at all. Then for our last heart, we are using the Caged Heart of Inexorable Force. This is the one where your ultimates will pull enemies towards you. This and the Barber Heart are mandatory for the build. For our Spirit Bones, we are going to be taking Awareness. You take 10% reduced damage from elites. Next, we are going to be taking Swooping Attacks. You gain 10% increased attack speed. Do not change this. We need attack speed. Then we are using Bolster. You fortify for 15% of your maximum life when you use a defensive skill. We will be spamming defensive skills. This will keep our fortify maxed out. Calamity would be another good option. Then we are taking Masochistic. Lucky Hit, critical strikes with shape-shifting skills have up to a 75% chance to heal you for 3% of your maximum life. And then we are using Overload. Dealing lightning damage has up to a 40% chance to cause the target to emit a static discharge, dealing 25% lightning damage to the surrounding enemies. This was buffed from 20% to 40%, and since Claw always applies Storm Strike, we are always applying lightning damage. For our skill tree, we are going to be putting 5 points into Claw, 1 point into Enhanced Claw, and 1 point into Wild Claw, and then 5 points into Storm Strike, 1 point in Enhanced Storm Strike, and Fierce Storm Strike. In the core skill tree, we are taking 3 points into Predatory Instinct and 3 points into Digigrade Gate. In the defensive skill tree, we are going to be putting 5 points in Earthen Bulwark, 1 point in Enhanced, and 1 point in Innate Earthen Bulwark, 1 point into Cyclone Armor, Enhanced, and Preserving Cyclone Armor, 1 point into Blood Howl, Enhanced, and Preserving Blood Howl, and then 1 point into Ancestral Fortitude and 3 points into Vigilance. In the companion tree, we are not taking anything. In the Wrath skill tree, we are going to be putting 1 point into Elemental Exposure and 3 points into Endless Tempest. This is to increase our Hurricane and our Cataclysm duration. 1 point into Hurricane, 1 point into Enhanced Hurricane, and 1 point into Savage Hurricane. And then 1 point into Neurotoxin, 1 point into Toxic Claws, and 3 points into Envenom. In the ultimate skill tree, we are going to be taking 1 point into Defiance, 3 points into Natural Disaster, and 1 point into Resonance, 1 point into Cataclysm, and then 1 point into Prime Cataclysm, 1 point into Defensive Posture. And for our key passive, we are going to be taking Nature's Fury. This combined with Symbiotic Aspect will make the whole build work. This will allow us to have a continuous Earthen Bulwark on. And also, we have a 30% chance to cast a skill of the opposite type. So basically, when we cast Cataclysm, we have a 30% chance to cast Petrify as well. This goes for all our skills. Next, I'm going to show some short gameplay. The first video will be with uniques, and it will be a tier 68 Nightmare Dungeon. And the next video will be without uniques at a tier 81 Nightmare Dungeon. The minor changes to this build allowed me to jump from 50 to 60 Nightmare Dungeons to 80 to 90 Nightmare Dungeons. I still need to test out changes to the Paragon and skill tree. For the Paragon board, we are going to be going up and to the right. We are going to be grabbing the rare node Prime for damage. Our first glyph is going to be Werewolf. You gain 10% damage reduction while in werewolf form. And then we're going to be grabbing Tenacity for the extra life and armor. On the way out of this board, we're going to be grabbing Impel for extra damage. And our first board is going to be Thunderstruck. We will be grabbing the legendary node. We will be taking the critical strike damage and the vulnerable damage in this tree as well. Our glyph will be Fang and Claw. While in werewolf form or werebear form, most enemies take 12% increased damage from you. You'll be grabbing all the rare nodes too, because these will be buffed by the glyph. Our next Paragon board is going to be Lust for Carnage. We will not be taking the legendary node. We will be taking the critical strike damage and increased attack speed in this tree. And the glyph's going to be Spirit. Critical strikes increase the damage an enemy takes from you by 2% for 20 seconds up to 12%. And then we will be making our way out to the right and taking the board Heightened Malice. This should always be your last board because we are only grabbing one rare node. But while leveling, you should always have this board. The legendary node is too strong to not have. Then we're going to go back to the Thunderstruck board and go out to the left. Our next board is going to be Constricting Tendrils. We are not taking the legendary node. The glyph that we are going to be taking here is Earth and Sky. Nature magic skills deal 10% increased damage to crowd controlled or vulnerable enemies. We will be grabbing all the rare nodes because this glyph buffs them. And then our final board is going to be Ancestral Guidance. We are not taking the legendary node. We are taking this board for all the basic skill damage and a glyph socket, and the final glyph will be Exploit. I'll have a link to the current build in the description down below. Again, I'll try to have an updated perfected build in a few days, as soon as possible. If you guys have any comments or feedback, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the support. I'll see you next time.